Welcome, all of you who've joined us. My name is Chris Hudson. I'm with AI Minnesota. I, along with Sherry Hansen, AI Minnesota's communications director, she's got a longer title than that, but are the staff liaisons for the Committee on Design, which oversees all of AI Minnesota's awards programs. We do this open house every year because people have lots of questions. Putting these submissions together is a big deal, and we like to bring people who have won in recent years, share their experiences assembling their submissions, which obviously ended up being quite successful. So we've got Nicole Bachnight from LSC Architects as the last year's winner of the Next Gen Award. And Kyle Palzer from Alliance, one of the last year's winners of the AI Minnesota Young Architects Award, to share their entries this afternoon. We want to kind of go over a little bit of, we're going to have them share their presentations in just a moment, but before we do, I want to, here we go. This is going to be happening. I want to pull up some of the eligibility criteria for these two awards. They're a little different, obviously, slightly different stages in a designer and architect's career. And pass it on to our one of our Committee on Design co-chairs, Doug Berger, to talk just a little bit about the newness of the Next Gen Award before we hand it off to Nicole and then to Kyle. So I'm going to do a screen share. I'll also say that the last few years, these virtual open houses have been relatively intimate, and so when it's time to ask questions, I think we might just have you raise your hands and speak rather than use the chat box for when we get to that portion of today's open house. So, you all seeing my my screen here, the Next Gen Award? Yeah, great. So this was new in 2022. Nicole had to put her submission together without the benefit of an open house and a previous year's winner. But this award was created last year. It was the first year it was given. Is given to recent graduates of an accredited NAAB architecture program who've demonstrated early leadership potential or exceptional service to the AIA, the profession, or the community at large. Eligibility is AIA Minnesota members and associate members who have graduated with an architecture degree from the NAAB accredited program in the last 5 years. This hasn't been updated, so this would be 2018 this year. But all of this information is available on the AI Minnesota website. You just go to get involved, AI Minnesota Awards, and then you have this menu of awards here. You choose Next Gen Award, it'll have your link to get into the award for system to begin your submission if you're going to submit this year. And all of the information you need related to eligibility, selection criteria, and submission requirements. So Doug, maybe Doug is Committee on Design co-chair here. I think Rebecca's here as well, actually, our other Committee on Design co-chair, but maybe just give a little context for the Next Gen Award. The committee's been working on this, had been working on this for a couple of years before it's launched last year.
Yeah, and you're putting me in a position where I have to rely on my memory a little bit. So, but I will say that we were looking for, you know, we have been talking about in the Committee on Design ways to expand recognition. You know, historically, there's been a focus on, particularly in the Committee on Design, a focus on design and a focus on licensed architects. And, you know, we're looking for ways to be more inclusive and ways to recognize the great work that's happening throughout the careers of young architects. And so we're really excited about this award. I was actually on the jury as well this year. And, you know, and I can't say a lot about that, about those discussions, but I will say it was very competitive, and it was, you know, I've been on juries where it's something that happens really quickly, and I've been on juries where there's a lot of discussion. And this was one of those juries where there was a lot of discussion about the entries because there were so many great entries, and the quality of the work was so high. And I was kind of surprised because this is like, as you said, Chris, this is the first year we've done this. And, I thought, do people really know about it? But what we found is that we had a host of really high quality entries, and it was a real challenge to determine which one we were going to give the award to this year. So congratulations, Nicole. You won out over a strong field of entries.
Yes, and just reiterating what Doug said, that I think we were seeing a kind of a hole in our recognition. We had Young Architect has got the word young in it, but it's sort of a mid-career award, and we've got the gold medal and the firm award. I mean, we had so many young members doing exceptional work early on that weren't quite eligible for the Young Architect Award. We wanted to make sure we were honoring that stage of the careers of our members too. So, Rebecca, I think Rebecca's here. Am I missing anything on that, Rebecca or Doug?
No, that's exactly right. So we're excited to see the applications in this coming year.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
We've made the submission requirements very similar, I think, between the two. So Nicole, if you go on to submit for Young Architect, you should know the submission requirements quite well. And again, these submission requirements are not directly related to national requirements for Young Architect Award, but there are some parallels that that are by design, so that when a person goes from Young Architect Regional to Young Architect National and submitting for that award, it will be very familiar to them as well, and the materials that need to be gathered and how it needs to be presented. So with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Nicole will share her experience putting her her entry together last year.
Thank you. Let me get this situated. So I started off by thinking about who I would want to be nominating me, and then who would be the 2 recommendation letters. And I specifically picked 3 people who saw me and my career in very different aspects. And so the first one, Anna and I have served together on professional organizations, so on AIA and NOMA boards. And so I wanted that perspective of hers from me as a leader in the industry. And I thought that was critical to my overall submission, is to demonstrate what I am doing just outside of the normal workday. And I thought she could best speak to that. And so she was the nominating letter. And then I picked a client that I work with frequently, Alyssa Peer. We were working together at Robbinsville Area Schools. And so I picked her to talk about her experience with me from a more professional client, typical kind of client architect relation side. And I thought that was important to show as well, and a totally different perspective than what Anna was bringing. And then for the third one, I picked Mohammed, who is technically, he's the L in LSC. So he's technically my boss, but I picked him more from a mentorship side. He's known me my whole life. And so I wanted him to bring the evolution of what he saw of me from kind of start of my career up until this submission, and my accomplishments that he thought beyond that. So those are kind of my 3 strategic roles that I thought about, and that could touch on kind of all aspects of my professional career for the 3 letters. So then for the bio, we formatted it more in a way that was narrative and told a story, rather than something that was a little bit more bullet pointed or just kind of factual based. And so it just kind of ends up creating a nice narrative about school and what I did in school, and then kind of everything that I've done, which includes the outside activities like recreating a Cap Wigington Ice Palace for an exhibit that I got to be a part of, to working on different projects, to the mentorship that I do at Dunwoody and the U, and just kind of with various candidates that hear about me and ask, for some advice here and there. So this just kind of became more of a narrative story that we kind of wove together in this, what I think kind of was a very organic way, but still communicated all of the facts about who I am and what I represent. And then for the 5 pages of content, I knew I wanted this to be very heavy on pictures and representations and very, very little on words, because I felt what I was talking about in terms of how I interact and who I interact with and, what sorts of things do I do outside of work. I thought that was best communicated through photographs. It took me a while to find a bunch of photographs. I had to go searching. But so I really just wanted these also to kind of feel organic and to feel a little playful, but to also just be a representative sample of me. And I like to have fun and I like to talk with people. A little farther down, it gets more into, some specific projects and content I've created and work I've done, but it doesn't give any kind of descriptors, I would say. So it's just more maybe a little bit up to interpretation per se. And I thought that was okay. And the people who were helping me put it together thought it was okay. I thought it was most important to show a little bit more of that personal side that I bring to the profession rather than just what I can create in an office setting. And so that's why the first 2 pages are primarily pictures. This is from the Cap Wigington at the exhibit, and then this was the panel, and then this was just a previous NOMA competition that I worked on. So that's kind of how I chose to format it all, and really focusing, I think, like how it was touched on earlier, focusing less on what I'm contributing in terms of licensure and maybe the more traditional architecture roles, and definitely leaning more on that community focused, personal side, people side. That's really a passion of mine. And so I really just leaned into that. And I guess it worked. So I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. I see nod from Rebecca, who's like, yes.
Nicole, you said you had to go digging for some of these photos. Did you have to get some from other folks, or were they all in your phone, or how did you go about gathering those?
Yeah. So most of them actually, well, a lot of them are from our internal marketing team who takes photographs at a lot of our events. A couple of them were in my phone that this one was sent to me by Mohammed. So I had to find that. And this one, obviously I did not take this photo because I was up on stage. So I had to find that in my phone. This one actually was from Dunwoody. This was featured in one of their marketing newsletters or something like that. That's me talking to the dean, Trevor. So that's where we pulled that one from. I think these were all on the public website of Mill City Museum, I believe. So yeah, and then some of the project ones, yeah, I had to go back into the archives to pull up some of these. These are more recent projects. Oh, and then I did include, I'd previously run an award from Finance and Commerce Rising Young Professionals. So we included a little snippet of that at the end.
Great.
All right. Are we taking questions now or later?
Why don't we wait till, well, you have Kyle do his, and the submissions are going to be a little more similar than people might think. So we'll have Kyle. Kyle, take it away.
Yeah, maybe before I jump in, Chris, would you be able to maybe pull up the Young Architect page that you have there?
Yeah.
I think there's just
Talked about that
slight nuances between the 2 awards that.
Yeah. There we go. They do the two awards do share a deadline or a window of for submissions, which is now through May 26th. But yeah, I'll read a little bit here. The Young Architect Award is given to individuals who at an early stage of their architecture career have shown exceptional leadership and made significant contributions to the profession and the community at large. Eligibility, members who have been licensed to practice architecture for less than 10 years and are currently licensed in Minnesota. Selection criteria, I'll just kind of scroll down here. Yeah, the submission requirements are a little lengthier because the applicants have had a longer time to accrue some accomplishments. So we allow for more space there under the exhibits, especially. Anything you want to point out that I can scroll to here for you, Kyle?
Yeah, I think just the selection criteria, the 4 different areas there. I can speak to my portfolio that I kind of put together, but I was kind of focused on the design excellence and the service kind of aspects. I know some of my other colleagues who won last year, they had, you know, different focus areas, maybe a little more on practice and things. So I think I tried to touch on all 4 in some way, and I'll maybe highlight that. But yeah, I think you can have particular strengths in different areas and can kind of focus the submission, you know, however it best suits what you've accomplished. So the other thing I guess I can point out is this application I know is highly closely aligned with the national application, if not more or less identical. And my 2 other counterparts who won this year with me, they both submitted for national. I did not this year, but they both won the National Young Architect Award. So I think it's another testament to Minnesota's submission criteria here being nicely set up to help you have success at national. So the 2 of them definitely did.
Great. I'll just while Kyle is doing the share screen and getting himself set up, I just want to reiterate that, yeah, we've had plenty of winners over the past years, have some balance between those 4 selection criteria. We've had some that have gone all in on one. There's no one recipe toward winning the Young Architect Award based on those criteria. But you definitely want to make sure you're focusing on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those criteria.
Yep. Great. Yeah. So just kind of going through here, I guess I did primarily reach out to Ed Codet, where I kind of started my career, and he kind of saw the various ways in which I started volunteering with the AIA. So reaching out to him, and he's still very active in the AIA in many different capacities. So getting a recommendation from him was greatly appreciated, and I think very helpful. Then I kind of just worked through more or less kind of the requirements that were laid out. So starting with kind of a candidate biography and writing kind of a concise snippet there. I think there's a word length for what that initial intro can be. And then just highlighting work experience, education, kind of the things you might expect to see. I've done a lot of professional volunteering with different collaterals or architectural different associations. So tried to highlight that, as well as some community volunteering and some honors and awards, gesture, ways I've been involved in the educational realm. So that's what these pages were. And then there's an opportunity for you to kind of list accomplishments. Here I didn't take maybe a narrative approach that Nicole did for hers, but rather, again, just kind of addressing, again, part of the submission application is how have you advanced education, enhanced the profession, been active engagement. So I tried to kind of highlight something or a couple different things for each of those categories in ways I achieved those things. And then, yeah, a spot for personal narrative, and again, advancing practice and benefiting the community were in other areas of focus. So yeah, again, just highlighting ways in which I've helped and succeed in those ways. And then there's also a category for leadership credentials and kind of wanting to see your involvement. So it's a little bit more bulleted, but yeah, just a quick way, I guess, to kind of highlight what the application is kind of asking for. So, and I definitely took a more kind of portfolio style approach to the application. It seems like others had kind of taken that approach before, and it worked well. So, yeah, then I sort of jumped into kind of more project specific type of things, but I wanted to start with the volunteering things that I had done. So I've volunteered in some capacity with all these organizations listed here. And so just highlighting some of those events and ways I've been involved. I was then volunteering with AIA National in a regional capacity, so highlighted that regional work that I had been involved. Again, a heavy focus on the profession volunteering here. There's definitely other applicants though who hadn't done any, quite extensive professional volunteering, and they focus maybe more on the project work. So again, as Chris was just saying, there's many different ways in which you can kind of approach this and highlight your personal skills and areas you've succeeded in. Again, some additional, this was a little more national work. So after I had done some regional stuff, I was involved with the National Associates Committee. So I served on AIA National for 2 years. So I highlighted that work and some of the things that we accomplished through that. And then this project here is where I transitioned into professional work. So this was actually volunteering with my parish, my church. So it kind of bridged the volunteer and the professional work. So I thought that was a good intermediate slide, and then kind of went into some of the projects that I helped accomplish. Part of it is declaring, if you were largely responsible for the design, project manager, project architect, things like that. So getting those declarations, and then getting one aspect of this for both Minnesota and then especially for national is just getting photo credit for all the photographs that you're using and compiling those. So reached out to the photographers to get credit for those images that they had taken. And so just highlighting those projects and my roles with them, a brief descriptor, because I thought it'd be helpful, to give some background for the projects. So yeah, that kind of summarizes it. I also had recommendation letters. I think 3 are required in addition to the nomination letter. So got those from current coworkers in my office who knew me well, as well as the pastor at my church who knew some of the volunteering stuff as well as project stuff. And then one from one of the people that I had served with National, who kind of knew my national volunteering pretty well. So I included those as well. The other thing I guess I can kind of say with projects or kind of putting this all together, one of the cautions that I heard last year in this open house forum was, you've got roughly less than 2 months or about 2 months to kind of put applications together. I think if you don't have things already kind of lined up and you have to go and find all this information and start to compile images and narratives and stuff, you might want to get started right now, sooner than later. I think reaching out to get the declarations of responsibility and reaching out to those people, give them at least a month. Same with letter writers and people giving recommendations, give them at least a month, and probably a couple, weeks ahead of time of the due date, so you have time to compile all that information and you're not waiting till the last minute to get those things. So now would be a good time to start to kind of figure out who you want to reach out to, and probably in the next week or two, maybe even as early as then, start to reach out to people. I was kind of, I don't know, someone put a bug in my ear as when I was starting in the profession to kind of start to compile a lot of these things and save the different things that you worked on and projects and stuff. So I've done a good job of doing that. So I had a lot of these things ready to go that I could plug into the application. So that made it a lot easier. But yeah, if I had to start from scratch, so to speak, and pull these all together, that would have been quite the workload. So I would want to get started on that. But even so, I mean, to kind of format things and proofread and yeah, just get everything looking good, it does take time, as I'm sure everybody knows. So the sooner you can start and the sooner you can do things in bits, probably for the best. So yeah, I think that's all the tidbits I have to share.
Great. Kyle, thank you for the comments about getting started early, because it can be difficult to pull all these materials together late and do some writing. Did you both have other folks look at your, I'll start with my question myself, because I always have questions. Did you both have others kind of react to a near final, your submission in near final form, to get thoughts and what seemed strongest about the submission, what seemed like there might have been things they expected to see but weren't there, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I limited that to 2 people, so I didn't open it up to everyone, but I strategically picked 2 people to help review it as it was coming along.
Gotcha.
One person had more of like a marketing kind of presentation background, and then the other person was in the profession and like actually knew the content.
No, good balance.
Mhm.
Kyle?
Yeah, similar to Nicole. Yeah, I kept the kind of secondary reviews kind of small, very similar approach. And then I did, Alliance was very helpful in allowing me some help with marketing staff to kind of pull some things together and help with layouts and things as well. So I took advantage of that. So yeah, if your firm is willing to kind of help you in this effort as well, maybe you can rely on some marketing staff and things like that to
Great, awesome. Philip or Ellie or Kimberly, if I hope I'm saying your names correctly, but any questions for our 2 presenters?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for organizing this. I haven't been able to log into the interface on the AIA website for submission. So I'm wondering, is there any chance that more than 2 letters could be submitted for the next gen?
Go back here. Submission requirements.
And then how is it set up? Is it set up that we send, is it auto-generated email to the person submitting the letter and goes straight, or should they go through us in uploading that letter?
Oh goodness, we don't have Sherry Hansen here, our resident staff expert, but Doug, you may know.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I submitted not so long ago for a Young Architect Award, and probably didn't allow as much time as I should have. So I actually reached out to more people for letters than letters that you can include, and so I actually had a spare. And but no, I did not include that letter as a letter in my Young Architect submission, but there was some good stuff in there. I had to kind of pick the one that I think there's 3 letters for Young Architect, and I think I got 4. And so I was able to excerpt text from that 4th letter and actually just integrate it into the submission. So that material wasn't presented as a letter, but I took some of the stuff that I thought was important and I included it in my submission, actually kind of within the graphic format. So I have a feeling, I suspect that you cannot add additional letters, but there may be ways to integrate that material in your presentation if you think it's important.
Yeah, that's a really good thought. And I was going to ask if, from you guys' perspective, if it's best to have the people who know us most to write the letters, or does the team also look at the diversity and where they're coming from?
Well, these are great questions. Both Rebecca and Doug have been in on these juries before, so I'll let them speak at length.
I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to say it's generally related to the story you're trying to tell. So whatever that story is, whomever can kind of tie into it the best is the strategy that I would suggest. And so like Kyle's, as an example, his was very heavily focus on some of his volunteer efforts. So those letters reflected that. Others, maybe they had a design focus. So whoever can really kind of chime in on that, that's how I would go about it.
I agree. I think that's exactly right. That you're writing a story about your life, and you want to have that story written by the people that know you best. And hopefully there's a diversity of folks in your life that can tell that story for you. Reaching out to people, based on something other than how well they know you is probably not as beneficial than reaching out to the people that can write your story the best.
Thank you.
Kyle?
Yeah, just one more thing to chime in there. Yeah, I believe you can see who, the letters come to you and then you upload them for both the Young Architect and the Next Gen Award. So you could also take Doug's approach, which is to get, maybe an additional 1 or 2 recommendation letters and then choose, which ones are the best, because you may get someone who knows you really well, but maybe they're not a good recommendation writer for whatever reason. So that's another approach too, is if you get an extra 1 or 2 lined up, you can choose whichever letter is the most helpful. So it's another approach. But yeah, in
Thank
addition
you.
to the
I just didn't know if they were
recommendation
blind
letters,
or, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say,
No, yeah,
I think
not
the letters are actually integrated right into the submission. So it's not like grad school where,
It's not sealed.
no.
Good to know. Thank you.
And as long as we're talking about letters, I want to say, as part of the process of pursuing one of these awards, reaching out to people that you've known throughout your career and asking them to write a letter like this is a really big deal. And then getting those letters is a big deal too. I mean, just to hear what people have to say about you is for me was one of the best parts of the whole process. Just to have that kind of conversation about the things I've done it was really good feedback for me.
We've had past participants or past presenters at this open house also talk about, even beyond the letters, just taking the time and to put together the story of your career so far has benefits beyond just this awards program. It can kind of organize your thinking about your next step in your career. Can help you realize strengths that you don't really think about a lot, but are clearly there. So there's some benefit to this big undertaking beyond the winning or beyond the winning of the award.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put.
I'd agree with that. I just want to say there's like things that I've done that in retrospect look strategic, but were things that just happened over time. And so being able to put that frame on your career in order to achieve that perspective is really important.
Ellie and others, for technical questions on award force, the link is right there. Submit an entry in the on the web pages on the AIA Minnesota website. But Sherry Hansen puts those pages together for these awards, and can help you with any questions you have related to technical aspects of the award. And I'm going to put my email in here too, in case Sherry's at the Capitol or something and you need immediate help. But Sherry and I are the two staff liaisons that are your first line of your first people to approach with questions. If you're having any questions about the portal for completing your submission.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
This is Kimberly Sambolt. Hi, thanks for hosting and sharing experiences. I appreciate it. I've looked at this award a couple times over the course of the last couple of years, and to Kyle's point about, you know, it's 2 months to put together an application. Years past, I just haven't been able to spend that energy in the 2 months that I was aware and ready to start. So I do want to kind of clarify, because I got my architecture license in July of 2013. So this year is my last potential qualifying year, hopefully. So, you know, considering that the application closes the end of May, do I still qualify, despite the fact that it's, you know, kind of May, and then I was licensed in July 10 years ago?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just didn't want to put together all of the effort and then and then have it be like, well, you missed the cutoff by a month.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
David.
Hi, thanks everyone for your time, and Nicole and Kyle, thanks for sharing your decks with us. I wanted to ask about Kyle, on your deck, you were showing like the declarations with each sheet, and Nicole, forgive me, I don't remember yours, if you had declarations, but is that a requirement where project by project you want to have that declaration, or can you gather the declarations together and just show the work as its own thing, or should they be married together on each sheet too?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. Nicole did also have the declarations on each of her pages, is what I remember seeing. So yeah, I took that approach. I think there were some I could have kind of grouped together. But again, I think based on the national application, they kind of have it set up that way. So I think Minnesota has taken that approach. Because yeah, the way it's worded, I guess they're like exhibits. And so each exhibit, I think, needs to have a declaration. So.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, I think we've had our questions answered. Again, my email and Sherry's email are available in the chat. AI Minnesota website has these pages with a pretty comprehensive listing of all that you need to think about before you start your submission, and the link to the program where you can go in and explore. And just kind of keep your submission going as you go along. It's not final until you click a final thing at the end. So thanks everyone for joining. Oh, we have another something in the chat.
I just threw my contact in there. So yeah, last year's previous winners who did this as well kind of offered to, if anyone wanted to reach out via email, you can reach out to me for sure, or a second set of eyes or something. I'm happy to assist with in any way I can, personal questions, or if you wanted a second set of eyes. So I'll throw that offer out there.
And Nicole has as well. Thank you both. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, thank you
Well,
both. That's really great to have you as resources.
All right, folks. Well, don't be shy. We're here if you have questions at any point during the we're especially attentive when we're getting into May and we know that you're feeling some panic and need questions asked quickly. So we will be very responsive to any questions you have, and thank everyone for joining us. And we thank Nicole and Kyle for taking their time out today. This is a really nice exercise we do each year, and kind of speaks to how supportive this community is with each other. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Good luck.
Mhm.
Thanks.